Alright, I'm going to start my review by saying that first and foremost, I thoroughly enjoy the character dynamic between that of the flamboyantly odd Harvey the mortician, played by Tommy Wiseau, and the mostly grounded but troublemaking wanderer John, played by Greg Sestero. The time they share together on screen typically makes for the most entertaining segments of the first volume of this film. However, those that know how Volume 1 ended won't be surprised to learn that Tommy is mostly absent in these proceedings and is relegated to a few, albeit memorable, moments in the second half. For this reason, much of the film rests on Sestero's shoulders, and Greg isn't the type of actor, nor is John the type of character that can carry the movie alone. Simply put, he's not that dynamic an actor, and John is not that interesting on his own. Tommy complements him in a sort of opposites attract way, where the juxtaposition between their personality just works well enough to be watchable, hell, even enjoyable. Funny enough, it is Harvey that lends the most of John's storyline in the first place. This was a baffling decision to me, one that may have paid off better if this film was simply the third act of Volume 1 and not its own feature.
Ah! You drive me crazy, John!
The second volume of the story picks up directly where the first one left off. Harvey is killed and falls from a cliff. John takes off with an ATM full of the money that was meant to be shared with Harvey, but with his newfound interest in a girl, he has other plans. The movie takes its setting from the Pacific Coast Highway to what appears to be a desert akin to the one in Breaking Bad. Ending up there to seek refuge from authorities or unsavory people, they end up shacking up with a gentleman named Rick that John's girlfriend knows. Rick's a foul-mouthed, crude, experienced, and overall eccentric man of a person. He isn't someone that would have fit in with the tone of the first film. He brandishes profanity like a hunter does a knife. At times, he'll say a line so out there, one particular one involving the word headboard comes to mind. And if you're digesting a fluid at that moment, you are likely to spit it out in abrasive shock. The way some campy films can be fun to watch because of the over-the-top characters with heightened acting, the same can be said for Rick. But there's also the campy films where the character's overly dedicated hamminess to a role is almost nauseating. And boy, does this film skirt the balance, simply because it really does over-rely on Rick being the third main cast member of the picture. And this was just too much. By the end, it was like a friend had overdone his stay.
Like I can hide a gun in this dress.
Look, you look innocent. You look very innocent, but you may hide a gun or something in your ass. You never know.
Alright, enough about Rick. He's not the only bizarre character to show up on Volume 2. When Drifter John needs a way to open the uncrackable safe, Rick has a friend come to look at the machine and see if it can be cracked. This guy acts and speaks as if he's lifted directly from a David Lynch movie.
I'm gonna have to have a whiskey over ice. Gotta unwind from my walk. I'll open this thing for you, but after I finish my drink.
The script choices are unique, and the use of wacky characters kinda makes up the proceedings, but therein lies the problem. This movie isn't that concerned with story, and it's more concerned with allegory. In this case, as in both Volume 1 and 2, that category happens to be friendship. The theme of friendship dominates the runtime of the picture in pretty unsubtle ways. John's choice to betray Harvey for his own monetary gain, not taking advantage of the ones that John loves, and him discovering that maybe you should appreciate what you have while it's around. This message is neatly tied up by the end of the flick, but its message is also a bit muddled by a subplot involving a twist with Rick and his turn to an antagonist towards the end, while attempting to thwart the plan that John made to take off. Intercut between the villain conflict between John and Rick are mysterious cutaway shots of a figure seemingly trailing the both of them. This figure ends up being the plot resolver, and to be honest, the figure and the conclusion can almost be predicted about 30 minutes to the credits. I wasn't impressed. Tommy Wiseau's lines are reduced to a lot of audio tracks replayed from Volume 1, and some very funny new bits recorded just for this one. He never disappoints, and audiences who've enjoyed all his work so far will still be on board for his work in this film. There are some wardrobe choices for Tommy, though, this time around, and boy, that will be the talking point amongst you and your friends leaving the theater for sure.
What do you want to be, John?
In conclusion, this movie makes some pretty bold choices, even has some clever use of breaking audience expectations. Also, like Volume 1, the exterior shots of the desert are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, stunning at times. I think that director Justin MacGregor has an excellent handle at setting up the scenery for the story and giving a sense of scope to each location. This is the common trait that it shares with Volume 1. They're both just very easy on the eyes. Volume 1 and 2 both have exceptionally long tracking shots and scenes without dialogue. There are scenes in both films that have no relevance to the plot or even have any rewarding payoff, if any at all. In my opinion, the first volume would have fared much better if it didn't feel like an incomplete story by the end. This film acts essentially as one overly long, sometimes tedious sit-through third act for a movie. So I ask, why was so much filler material not carrying any weight for the film? Did this movie need to be 2 pictures? I said it after Volume 1, and man, it couldn't ring truer after viewing Volume 2. These movies need to be edited into one pretty decent film. It's unfortunate that this volume, however, carries much less of the narrative than Volume 1, which isn't saying much. And for that reason, it's even tougher to sit through. There are about 25 to 30 minutes of truly good material that, if somehow tacked on to Volume 1, would have been far more satisfying and sensical, if you ask me. This was a nice effort, and I can appreciate what newcomer Justin MacGregor's attempt here at something unique and unhinged, but it also takes the right balance of tone and pacing to make something this campy work. There's a place for long tracking location shots and sparse dialogue. This, quite simply, was not one of those places.